Hi there, this is Andrew with XLaser, and today we're going to be taking a look at getting started with the XLaser Mercury control system on Jands Vista. So as you can see here, I've got Vista 2 running on this PC. I've also got on the bottom left a video of what the laser is actually doing, just projecting on the wall here in the studio. So to start with, I'm going to open up a new show file, and we'll start from scratch, and I'll show you how I got here. So I'm just going to go to New Show. I'm not going to save the show here, and we'll see that we're starting with a blank slate now. So the first thing to do is to patch the fixtures. So I have here in my user fixture library the Mercury Master and the Mercury Basic Builder. So these aren't in the Jands fixture library just yet. They will be, but for the time being, you can get these from XLaser. So to start with, I will patch a master here just at DMX address 1 in universe 1. So my various universes up here, universe 1, and starting at DMX 1 because that's where my fixture is addressed. After that, I'm going to patch a basic builder, and we have up to 4 basic builders on one fixture. So I'll just go ahead and patch 4 of them, and we'll have those, and we'll start from 1 and go from there. The next thing is, because I'm actually using ArtNet here, I need to connect my universe to the laser. So that's just done right here. I'm going to select universe 1. There we go. So now we should be ready to go. So now we're going to go to the fixture chooser here. And we can see we have 1 master and the 4 basic builders hooked up to that. All right, so to start actually doing some laser stuff, we're going to select the Mercury Master. I'm going to go to the Intensity tab, and we have the Intensity control right here, so I'll just bring that up. And then we also have the Fixture Mode control here. Right now it's set to Fixture Disabled. So if I click on here, we can see in the browser we have these different modes here. So external input would be if you had an ILDA signal hooked up to the laser, you'd select that. But I'm going to be doing this all through DMX, so I'm going to select Builders Enabled, and that will enable the internal builders and the internal content generation in the laser. So now that's done. Next, I'm going to select a basic builder, just one of the first ones here, and I'll start bringing up the intensity there, and we'll see what we see. And there we go. So now we have a circle. That is our default gobo. So this is page 1, pattern 1 in our about 400 or so different patterns we have available on the laser. So as you can see there, we have that basic pattern. I've got control over the pan and the tilt of it, and a bunch of other parameters that we'll look at in a second. But the first thing you're going to generally want to do with lasers is set up your zones. And that's done with the Mercury system in the master. So I'm going to deselect the basic builder, select the master. And you can see here under the position tab, I have pan, tilt, and horizontal and vertical scale, X scale and Y scale. So with that, I can control the overall position and size of my projection zone. But right now, the circle doesn't really show me what my zone is. So I'm going to go back to the basic builder, and I'm going to select under the Gobo tab. I'm going to select Gobo page 254. And that gives me just a big old square that shows me the maximum size of my projection area. Now if I go back to the master and go back to the position tab, I can start adjusting my overall size. And usually for lasers, you usually have a wide, short zone, something like maybe like this. So you're often terminating over your audience, so you have not a lot of vertical room, so you're fairly squashed in the in the y-axis, but fairly wide in the x-axis. That's fairly typical, but it depends, of course, on the environment. So as you can see here, if I start to increase the y scale, for instance, it gets smaller and then it gets bigger. It's actually inverting here. So this is one way that you can do zone inversion. So if you need to mirror your image horizontally or vertically, you can do that here in the master as part of the scale process. So once I have this scale set to the size I want, I can then, using either the tilt parameter here or even just grabbing the position up here, I can move that up and down, left, right, whatever I need to do to get my zone where it needs to be. So I'm just projecting on the wall here, so I'm going to set this to its maximum size because I don't need to worry about any of that in this particular environment. So now we have the zone set, now we can actually start doing some cool effects with the laser. So I'm going to go back into the basic builder here, and I'm going to go back to the Gobo page, and I'm going to take this back down to that circle. So you can see here again, just like a moving light, we have pan and tilt control, so I can move that around. And then I also have rotation and spin controls. So those aren't going to show up well in a circle. So let me go back to the Gobo tab here. And here you can see we have Gobo page, Gobo selection. So the pages are arranged thematically. So if I'm in page 0 and I go through that, you'll see that that's all different kinds of circles. Some circles have colors, some circles have segments missing, some circles have beams added, just all kinds of different circle type patterns. If I go on to the next page, you'll see that we have lines. So we've got small lines, big lines, colored lines, white lines, lines with beams, lines in V shapes, all sorts of different line shapes. And again, if we go up to the next page, we have curves, we've got then triangles, squares, stars, beams, all sorts of different things, all arranged thematically. So let me pick a triangle here. That'll show up pretty nicely. And now if I go back to the position tabs, now you can see that if I use the rotation control, I can spin that around. This is just me moving that rotation up and down. That's a fixed rotation, kind of like indexing a gobo. And then the spin control, I have the ability to apply a continuous rotation. So we can go forward at a range of different speeds, and then we can go in reverse in a range of different speeds. So let's set that back down to 0. Next, if we go back to the gobo tab, we have a prism control. So using this, we can actually multiply the pattern. So we have a 1x2, 1x3, 1x4, and so on. If I click right here and go to the custom feature browser, where you can see these all listed out. So if I go to a hexagon here, for instance, you'll see that now I have 6 of those arranged in a hexagon sort of arrangement. I can then take the spacing of that prism and change it. So I can squash it horizontally. And again, you can see that this gets smaller and then gets bigger. Again, that's flipping around, inverting it in the x-axis. Likewise for the y-axis. And then we have a prism rotation. This is an incremental rotation of each element of the prism. So you can see as I wind this up here, you can see that each individual element is rotating relative to the previous element. So using that, I can get into kind of a radially symmetrical pattern, something like that maybe. So if I wanted something that was radially symmetrical, this is a good way to do that. Okay, so in addition to the basic geometry controls, we also have color controls. So if I select the builder here, we have a whole color macro channel, which allows you to select from a whole bunch of different preset color effects that can do static colors, gradients, all kinds of different things. So I'll start by just selecting color macro 1. And then the other thing I need to do before this will work properly is I need to go to the custom tab and select both of these 2 color pickers here, go under intensity and bring up my virtual intensity. And then my 2 color pickers will work. So you can see I have right now the first color picker controlling the overall color of the whole projection. If I select a different color macro, so now you can see I've got sort of a gradient happening, or maybe you can't see it on the camera. Let me pick a different couple of colors that are going to be a little bit easier to see. So you can kind of see now there's a green on the outside, it sort of fades to orange in the middle, and that's controlled by these 2 different color pickers. So you can see if I control the second one here, I control the outside color. If I control the first one, I control the inside color. There's a whole bunch of different macros that do different kinds of things, all kinds of different patterns. Some of them have stripes, some of them have just a solid break in the middle. And then what you'll also notice is that some of these will look different depending on whether you have a prism happening. That's because they either are applied before or after the prism. So you can play with this in combination with a prism, in combination with other geometry controls, and see all the kinds of different things you can do. All right, so now that we have this color happening, let's add a bit of motion to it. So if I go up here to custom, we have our motion macros. What these do is apply different kinds of motion effects to the pattern. So if I select the first one here, so I'm going to motion macro, and then you can see I get this sort of wave effect happening. If I step through that, there's all kinds of different things, different kinds of waves, denser waves, less dense waves, subtle stuff. There's a kind of radiating pattern that's kind of cool on this radially symmetrical prism. And then what I can do is I can override the speed and size of this macro. So right now it's a fairly small wave, but if I take control of this macro size here, I can make that wave taller and make that a bigger effect. Or in some cases, I can actually make it a smaller effect. So if I'm at 0 here, I'm at whatever was programmed into the macro. If I go up to 1, it gets a little bit smaller, and then I can take a macro that maybe is too busy, too energetic for what I want, and make it a little bit more subtle. Likewise with the speed. So if I bring this up to a slightly higher size here, I can also override the speed. So again, 0 is default, and if I start to increase that to 1, it slows way down, barely even moves. And I increase that further. I can kind of fine tune the speed to match what I'm going for visually. So if I start to increase this again, all the way up to maximum, it gets pretty crazy. I can bring it back down nice and slow, be a little more subtle. So if I go over here to the focus tab, I also have control over the overall size of the image. And like before with the prism control and with the master zoning, you can see that it gets small and then it flips over and gets big again, and that's inverting the whole image horizontally and likewise vertically. So this is just one of the builders. As you can see, we have 4 here. So if I select the second one, go over to intensity and bring that up, you can see we have our default circle happening on builder number 2. It's fixture number 3 right here. So all of these controls apply to each of these independent builders independently. So I can do multiple effects that are stacked using different builders all from one fixture. Sort of like thinking about layers in a media server. So I can apply everything that I did to this first one, I can apply to the second one and get even more complicated effects. And again, all of these things, because we're working in the same workflow as a moving light, your console effect engine will work with these parameters just like it would with a moving light. So if I wanted to do, if I had multiple fixtures and I wanted to do a coordinated chase, like a dimmer chase or a ballyhoo or anything like that, all programs exactly the way you would with a moving light. So that's about it for the Jands quick start with the Mercury system from XLaser. As always, let us know if you have any feedback, questions, or need a demo or further assistance. Thanks. Bye.